Hi everyone, it's Sue Plumb here to share another scrapbook process video with you. Today's layout that I am sharing was created for the Cocoa Vanilla Studio design team, and it was created using the beautiful These Days collection, which is a fairly recent release. Now, for this layout today, we were actually tasked with scrap lifting a layout, but we were actually tasked with scrap lifting a layout of our own from the past, something way back. So that layout you can see there of mine was created back in November of 2018, and it's a layout that I still love, and it's using the collection Life is Beautiful, which was originally released back in 2015. It was one that was released in Cocoa Vanilla Studio's first year, and it's a collection that I still adore to this day. So I decided to pick this layout, and for once I am actually going to scrap lift and follow the layout in front of me. Now, there's two reasons for this. Number one is I really don't have much mojo at the moment because this is an episode of COVID crafting with Sue. So I am currently at home with my family. We have been tested positive for COVID. I'm not feeling 100%. I'm lacking in a little bit of mojo. So I figured, why not follow my layout exactly? I did come up with it the first time around. I thought, well, let's see if the design still rings true today, and I will basically follow the same design but translate it over to a recent collection. And I also added in a couple of little elements that I tend to use on most of my layouts, which you'll see when I get to it. So you could see from that image that I flashed up before that this was sort of a vertical style design. I was scrapping on a sheet of 12 by 12 white cardstock. However, it's basically the bulk of the layout sort of sits 8.5, 9 inches down the center of the page there. So I decided to stick with that same basic layout. I chose a fairly neutral pattern paper as my first paper down on the page, which was that spot. Initially, my other layout had like a chevron style pattern. I wanted to mimic the papers as best I could. So in place of the butterfly papers that had butterflies all over them in the original, I actually chose that paper that's got the really sweet little houses on it. It's called Neighborhood. And I thought this would be the perfect choice for me to document a photo of myself and my family out the front of our new house that we recently purchased. I thought, yes, the house theme would go quite well. So I did choose that like as my feature pattern on this page. Now you can see that I'm also adding in a couple of extra horizontal strips that were also in the original design. You can see those strips were slightly wider than the base piece of pattern paper that went down, and I thought, well, I'm going to stick with the design. So I stuck with that. I did curl up the corners of those slightly, which is something that I like to do on all of my pages these days, just to add a little bit of extra dimension to the page. I did originally distress the edges of the pattern paper on my first layout, so I decided to go with that again because it's something that I still love to do today because it does add that textural element to a page. I am working with a square photo here, and simply because the square, so it's a 4x4, it worked really well with this original layout, and I thought, yes, I need to stick with that as well. Now, here you can see I am adding one of the elements that I tend to use on most of my pages these days, which is frayed gauze. Now, I didn't have any of this on the original page, so I thought it would be quite interesting to add that into the mix on this one. And I am also adding on a coloured paper doily. So I was tossing up whether to use the dark charcoal coloured one that you can see that I went with there, or a lighter grey. And in the end, because there was so much black, heavy black in that photo, that black and white photo of us, that I opted to use the charcoal one because it tied in much better, and it just made the black in the photo work so much better. So yes, they were the only things, the only layers that I added in underneath my photo besides the cardboard there, just to pop it up slightly from the background. I hadn't added any pattern paper layers underneath the photo in the original layout because there was just so much busyness and so much pattern paper on the page in the first place. Now, the other thing I did want to do with this is I wanted to add one of the pocket cards. So that's the pocket card pack you can see there on the screen. I did want to add one of the pocket cards in alongside my photo, kind of to act as journaling, and also because I did want to stray a little bit from the original design, and I wanted to find a way to incorporate one of these cards onto the page. And I love that card with that beautiful script on it. There's no place like home. I was fiddling around here trying to get the card to sit at the height that I wanted it to sit at. Originally, I had it sort of sitting flat on the page, but I found it got a little bit lost. I wanted to bring it closer to the foreground to sit equal with the photo. So I add 2 layers of double-sided foam tape there, and that brought it up beautifully to sit alongside the photo, and it wasn't getting lost in the background anymore. So yeah, on the original layout, I did have like a floral cluster on the side there, and you will see that I do try and stick with the idea of the floral clusters. So what I'm fiddling with here is the die cut ephemera pack, and I was pulling out a few pieces that I thought would work, and I was originally going to start by putting down some of the ephemera pieces. And when I fiddled around with it like that, I thought, no, I can't start here. That was not the right place for me to start, because I knew I wanted to put florals on the page. So I ended up pushing those ephemera pieces aside and went to the florals and decided to start building the florals first before I reached for any of the extra pieces from the die cut ephemera pack. Now, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm working hard. I'm a little tiny bit croaky still. I'm over the worst of it, but I've got a bit of brain fog and, yeah, residual sort of croakiness and a little bit of nasal congestion. If anyone else out there has had COVID, yeah, you know that there's a huge range of symptoms and it affects everyone differently. And yeah, it's basically just been like a really bad head cold for me, although I still don't have any taste or smell. And as I said, I've sort of got a bit of a headache and brain fog lingering on. So forgive me if I mid-sentence forget what I was saying. Anyway, I digress. Back to the layout. You can see that I am building that floral cluster down in the bottom left corner of my photo there. I wanted to add some dimension to my layout by adding the flowers at different heights. So one of them was added on directly on top of the pattern paper, which I tucked under the edge of the bottom edge of the photo. For the second flower, I added 1 layer of foam tape to it. So it sat it up sort of that half layer above the previous flower. And then the smaller flower, you can see I've actually added on directly onto the corner of my photo, which gives it that half layer again. So that's giving me depth to my cluster there. I then moved up to the top right corner of my photo and I was adding some florals up there because there were florals around that area on the original layout and I wanted to balance that off. And then in that bottom left cluster, you can actually see I've added one of the wood epoxy buttons. There was a flare button there on the original layout, so I thought I better emulate that. So I chose one of the wood epoxy buttons from this collection, and it's got this cute little house on it that I thought tied in really well with the theme of the page. Now, for my third cluster, which was actually my title cluster, this is where the title was on the original page as well, I decided to add a couple of little flowers, which one of them I tucked under that horizontal strip, and then I've added a little one beside it. I'm using the foam title stickers from the collection, which are a beautiful charcoal colour and tied in really well with that dark doily and the blackness in my photo. I just added those. I just used that horizontal strip basically as a guide to run my title along it. And then I turned my attention to sticking some other little bits and pieces on. So just like the original, I've added a label in the bottom right corner there so I can add journaling and the date. I also added on a couple of tiny heart stickers that I added onto the photo from the puffy stickers sheet. I also cut that little phrase out, that "Oh Happy Day," which I've stuck along the bottom edge of the photo. That was from the cut apart sheet. And that little sweet flag that I've added up near my title there, just to add an extra element there, so that my title actually read Sweet Home, but I've just gone with home as the title of this page. Now, on the original layout, I actually had some, oh, that's right, I went back and added a butterfly because you know how much I love butterflies, and I just thought it needed a little extra something on that right side of the page, so I just popped that on there. Now, as I was saying, on the original layout, I did have some splatters on that layout. They were coloured splatters. But when I looked at this page, what I thought it needed more than anything was a bit more darkness. So I opted to go with plain black ink splatters on this page. And that was basically it. I did stamp the date. Oh, look at me doing the right thing and covering up my photo for a change. I did stamp the date on that little label down in the bottom right corner, but that was basically it. That was all I did for this layout. I really enjoyed actually pulling out one of my old layouts and scrap lifting it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing the result today. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye.